Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies for my tardiness. We will now call the April 8th, 2019 board meeting to order. Mr. Gaither, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Leslie Grant. Present. Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, Ms. Candace Wood Jackson.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair, Mr. Jason Estevez.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaither. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 4th board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Candace Wood Jackson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the April 8th board meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Candace Wood Jackson. Note here that the motion, that the agenda as it stands right now on board docs has one item that was removed earlier today regarding the food and nutrition management contract. That is to allow board members to further analyze and discuss the item with the administration. So that has been pulled from this agenda and will be added to a future agenda. Any further questions or discussion there?
Herschel, could you come here? Sorry.
So not about that. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I have some sad news to share this afternoon. Earlier today, Dr. Michael Mays, the director of the CTAE program, was found deceased at his home. Obviously, this is shocking to Dr. Mays' colleagues and to the entire APS family. Dr. Mays was a dedicated and talented leader of our CTAE work and made countless contributions to the work of this district and in the state. Dr. Mays has been the director of the CTAE program for 8 years. He led the Signature Program Initiative, which is a keystone of our school system, and that includes STEM education, international baccalaureate, and college and career readiness. In 2017, he was named the Georgia Association of Career and Technical Education Administrator of the Year in recognition of his longstanding commitment to high-quality outcomes in CTAE. He will be missed in APS, in Atlanta, and across the state for his leadership and his contributions. And we pray for his family and friends and colleagues. So I'd like for everyone to join me in a moment of silence in honor of Dr. Mays. Thank you. And I also wanted to allow my colleague, Cynthia Briscoe Brown, who recently traveled with Dr. Mays, to say a few words before we start the presentations.
Thank you, Jason. Most of you know that this time just last month, Michael Mays, coordinator of World Languages, Margaret McKenzie, and I were traveling to Toulouse and Barcelona, where we dramatically expanded foreign exchange opportunities for our kids. But my professional relationship with Michael goes back well over a decade to his tenure at North Atlanta High School. As we moved within APS from magnet programs to small learning communities to school and cluster-wide IB, Michael always used those transitions as an opportunity to learn and grow. His welcoming smile, his collaborative attitude, and his total dedication to our students made him a favorite in the building and in the community. When he moved into central office as CTAE director and later added leadership of our signature programs, Michael's passion for learning and his unbounded curiosity made him unafraid to ask bold questions and dream big dreams. Whether it was lunch and learn programs at North Atlanta with local executives, the CTAE golf tournament fundraiser, or career skills internships on the other side of the world, Michael was always coming up with creative ways to broaden our students' horizons. You've heard me say that we have to show our students that there's a world out there and they can be a part of it. Michael Mays did more to advance that work than anyone I can think of in APS. Michael Mays' death is a huge loss to the APS community and to the larger Atlanta community as well. We who are left owe it to him to carry on his work with the same enthusiasm, openness, and spirit of adventure that he offered to his colleagues and his students every day. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Cynthia. Now transitioning to the presentations part of the work session. Dr. Christarfin is not able to join this meeting as she is out of the district today. As Deputy Superintendent, David Jernigan. Hi, David. Is here in her place for today's board meeting. Mr. Jernigan, will you please bring the work session items?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Estevez. It is a sad day, and I'll just echo the sentiments of Chairman Estevez and Board Member Prisco Brown. I know my team today is really struggling with this news. Our schools and academics team has worked closely with Dr. Mays, obviously, for many years. And I can just say, as someone who's worked closely with him on the College and Career Academy, that will be his legacy for this district. That was his vision. That was something he was so proud of to see get launched in August of 2016 and to see the second phase coming to life a year from now. I know it's something that he was really proud of. So thank you all for helping to invest in something that was his vision, and it will certainly outlive him. With that, we do have 3 presentations today. First, we have the opportunity to hear from the Atlanta Beltline CEO, Clyde Higgs. Following Mr. Higgs will be Angela King-Smith, our Chief Engagement Officer. She's going to provide us an update on the progress of our employee culture work and the K-12 Insight Let's Talk application. She'll be followed by Lisa Bracken, who's going to give us our monthly financial update as well as a budget update. For our first presentation, I want to welcome Mr. Clyde Higgs, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Atlanta Beltline. As this board well knows, the Atlanta Beltline is one of the most comprehensive and ambitious revitalization efforts in our city's history. I was just sharing with Mr. Higgs, I had the chance to be out there yesterday and enjoy this Beltline, which I often do on the weekends. Importantly, more than $148 million of tax dollars that are due to APS have been directed to the Beltline as part of our commitment and as part of the tax allocation district that funds the Beltline. So that's why we felt this presentation was particularly important in understanding our role in this project. Mr. Higgs, welcome to APS, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Good afternoon, and as mentioned, my name is Clyde Higgs, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Atlanta Beltline, Inc. And so, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. And before I get started, I have to also make sure that I recognize my board member for the Beltline, Cynthia Briscoe Brown. And so thank you, Cynthia, for your continued support. And also Leslie, who serves on BAHAB, our Affordable Housing Advisory Board for the Beltline. So thank you very much for having us today. I think it's been a long time coming before we for the last time we've actually presented to you, so thank you for your attention. And I would be remiss if I also did not recognize members of my senior team that are also in the audience. And to my far right, we have Marshall Norwood, who is our Chief Financial Officer for the Beltline. And the next to Marshall, we have Nanette Sykes, which is our year-old new Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer for the Beltline. And then next to Nanette, we have Jill Johnson, that heads government relations for our organization. And then also Tawana Harris, that leads content, brand, and communication effort for the Beltline. So please give me a personal point of privilege in recognizing my team there. I think it is always important for people that are actually doing the work to get recognized. So please give them your warm wishes. But real quick, I promised to spend maybe 10, 12 minutes just giving a general update on all things Beltline. APS, as David and others have mentioned, they're an important part of what we do, especially with regards to the tax allocation district. But I just want to remind people about the Beltline in general. So we often talk about it as the trail component. People love to get out there and run on the Beltline. But the Beltline, as you know, is so much more. I'm often reminded of a really interesting article in the New York Times maybe 2.5 years ago where the writer described the Beltline as a glorified sidewalk. And I always thought that was interesting, and that is the sexy part of the Beltline. People think about it as walking on the Beltline and enjoying it with family, and that is important. But also the Beltline is an economic development engine for the city of Atlanta as well. So to date, we have invested about $500 million of public money into the Beltline since its inception. We have seen over a $4.5 billion investment from private dollars on top of that. So that is more than an 8-to-1 return on public investment into the Beltline. We've created over 11,000 jobs along the Beltline corridor to date. Those are 11,000 permanent jobs. Then an additional 33,000 temporary construction jobs along the corridor as well. So again, as we think about the Beltline, think about the various program elements. We cannot forget the whole transit push. You may remember when this project was first envisioned, the transit discussion was really at the core of what the Beltline was. Like, how can you get people around different neighborhoods in the core of Atlanta? And that's something that we continue to push forward. And then obviously, it's no secret that the affordable housing piece has to be a main focus for the Beltline, and we are happy to announce that we are making good progress. We're still far behind on where we need to be, but we have a strong pathway forward. Then also mentioning the environmental cleanup. So when we talk about the Beltline, this is old dirty land that used to be a railroad corridor that we are cleaning up for the city. And so I show this slide just to remind people that the Beltline is so much more than the trail that people get a chance to enjoy on their time off. And just real quick, this slide is mostly aspirational, but hopefully it gives you a glimpse into who we want to be as an organization. So our organization went through a session where we came up with 5 core values that we really embrace, and how we want people to think about my organization and how the Beltline will be a project for all people. And these are the 5 core values that we embrace. Equity, making sure that the Beltline is a place for all. Partnership, making sure that people realize that although the organization that I run is the quarterback for the Beltline project, but it really is the people's project at the end of the day, and there's many organizations that really help to advance the project, from city government to not-for-profit organizations to the private sector. All these organizations together in partnership with the Beltline team help to advance the project. Innovation, commitment, respect. Again, these are the core values that we embrace for our organization. And again, some of these are aspirational, but hopefully that gives you a glimpse into who we hope to be. The Beltline organization as a whole, we are roughly a 44-person organization. We are a single-purpose implementation organization there only to advance the Beltline project. We are funded, as you know, through a tax allocation district that is managed, if you will, by Invest Atlanta that looks at all TADs across the city. And obviously our TAD partners are APS, Fulton County, and the city of Atlanta. And then you may have also heard from our sister organization, the Atlanta Beltline Partnership, and they are focused on raising private philanthropic funds to advance the Beltline. And so this is a quick map of the Beltline, and I won't go into all the gory details on this slide, but you can see a gray loop, and this represents what we describe as the planning area for the Beltline. And so that gray loop, that dark gray loop, represents a half a mile on each side of the trail for the Beltline. And then for the orange section here on this map, that represents what we describe as our tax allocation district. So this is where we derive our baseline funding for our organization through the TAD. And this is how we actually count affordable units that have been created along the Beltline as well. And this is another map. We love maps at the Beltline organization, and you will see the dots here represent schools that are close to the Beltline. So we count roughly 20 or so schools that are inside of the Beltline planning district, and so we are very cognizant of that, and we continue to look for ways to partner with APS related schools. And just real quick, one of the things that we hope to do a better job of is stopping and taking store of some of the good things that have happened on the Beltline. And so this slide captures some major significant events over the last 3 years that are really important to us. And I won't go over all of these, but I'll highlight a couple. Funding. So you may remember about 2 years ago where the voters advanced the more MARTA sales tax. This sales tax has the potential to raise roughly $3 billion for transit along the city of Atlanta. Roughly 900 million of that will be transit to and along the Beltline. And so you may remember the MARTA board voting last October on priority projects, some of those which will get advanced on the Beltline. So we're excited about that and our partnership with MARTA and the city of Atlanta. And then also the T-SPLOS sales tax that was passed about the same time, and a portion of those dollars will be used for acquisition for us to buy the remaining land that we need to complete the Atlanta Beltline. On the economic development side, I already referenced the $4.6 billion in private investment. That is significant. I'm an economic developer. Anytime that you can get an 8-to-1 return on public dollars, that is something to tout. And on the affordable housing side, again, we are behind, but we do have a pathway forward. We've created about 640 affordable units along the Beltline within the tax allocation district. And then there has been another 1,000 or so units that have been created, not necessarily in the tax allocation district, but in neighborhoods that are close to the Beltline. And these are some other milestones that I want to chat with you about. Land acquisition. So last year at this time, with Mayor Bottoms, we announced the historic acquisition of the South Side Corridor. This was significant. So if you don't remember anything that I say in this presentation today, this will be the seminal moment in Beltline history, because ultimately what this is going to do is connect the East Side Trail to the West Side Trail. This is game-changing for us. And so again, when we look back 30 years from now and talk about some of those pivotal moments in Beltline history, that acquisition was significant. It's a $26 million transaction, 63 acres that will connect about 4 miles of trail in the key South Side segment. And then also we are involved in opening up the new East Side Trail extension that will take the East Side Trail all the way down to Memorial Drive, and we hope to finish that actually in May of this year. So exciting progress. And then also, again, big moments in Beltline history. About 2 years ago, we were elated to open the historic West Side Trail for the Beltline. So this is a 3-mile stretch from Washington Park at the north all the way going south to Adair Park and University. And you can see some familiar faces in some of these slides here. But again, another significant milestone for the Beltline development. And just moving forward, 2019 is going to be a challenging year for us. We have acquired, I want to say, nearly 75% of the land that we need to actually complete the Beltline. We still need to figure out what's going to happen on the northwest section. So if you think about the clock dial, we still do not own or control from about 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock on the dial. And so that's something that we have to tackle for 2019. And then also the transit piece, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier, advancing transit along into the Atlanta Beltline. One of the projects that we are very excited about for this year is the Old State Farmers Market. And I know that you were out on the West Side Trail, so this is Murphy's Crossing. So this is about a 20-acre site that we're ultimately going to repurpose into a job-creating hub along the West Side Trail that would also have affordable units there. And so we hope to pick a partner, a developer that will help us to recast that site into something really special for that community. So very excited about that. And this is just a slide that talks about our affordable housing ambitions for 2019. And you will see that we have roughly 400 affordable units in our pipeline. And you know, the big piece from this slide is that we are mandated from a Beltline perspective to do affordable units for 15 years and at 80% of AMI. Again, the cool part about this slide is that the majority of the units that we have in our pipeline are at 60% AMI and below, and they are more than 15 years of affordability. So although we are mandated to do 80% and 15 years, we are going deeper and longer with regards to our affordable housing. And this is just other slides. This is the MARTA slide, and we just like to remind people that transit is at the very core of what we do, helping people to get around the city of Atlanta. And so we're going to be very excited about advancing that program for this year. And then also we plan on opening the South Side corridor. So that corridor that I mentioned that we acquired last year at this time, we're going to open that up as an interim hiking trail until we can actually find all the funding to do the hardscape paved trail that we're all familiar with. And so we hope to have that completed by the summer of this year. And then we continue to do design work on Boulevard Crossing Park and Anoda Park. And we are very happy to announce in closing that this is the 10th year for Art on the Atlanta Beltline. Art on the Atlanta Beltline, we believe, is the largest public art installation in the Southeast. And we have launched that, and this is our 10th year anniversary, and we are very excited for this last year. So that is the quick and dirty highlights of what's been going on for the last 3 or 4 years for Beltline. And again, I want to thank you all for being partners in advancing this project, and just know that we are in deep discussions and advancing ways to work with APS and the students that attend those schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Erica, then Ishay, then Cynthia, then Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins, for the presentation.
Thank you.
I have one question regarding the affordable units.
Yes.
I know you said you have 1,640. What is the average income requirement to be considered for affordable housing?
So for us, so that minimum or that maximum, depends on how you want to measure that, is 80% of AMI. So that's roughly $44,000 a year.
Okay.
And but we are doing deeper affordability. So our pipeline right now is at 60% and below, and that is in the mid $20,000 for a single family household.
Single family?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is it for not single family?
So for the 80% of AMI, that goes all the way up to about 55,000 or so for a family.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
It's still along the line of affordable housing. My question is just a percentage of it. So I know you stated it was 1,600 units.
Correct.
But what's the total inventory?
So we hope to, so the Beltline, as you know, we're supposed to finish this project by 2030. So we are charged with creating 5,600 units of affordable housing along the Atlanta Beltline tax allocation district by 2030. So 5,600 is the goal. We are at about 1,640 units against that goal today.
So I guess my question, I don't know if it's something, if it is, so from the development, from the Beltline, what's been the total units of properties developed, right? So if there's apartment, if there's a unit that has 1,000 and only 100 of those are affordable housing, we're looking at 10%. So just kind of figuring.
Yeah, so typically, so our goal is anyone that develops housing within the Beltline tax allocation district and they receive funding from the Beltline, we ask for 20% of those units to be affordable. Now, there is a new ordinance, as you know, that's been advanced by the city, inclusionary zoning, that requires developers within the Beltline district to do 15% or 10% of those units as affordable.
And thank you. And so my second question is in regards to revenue. How much total annual revenue does the Beltline pulls in from all the sources, from APS, Fulton County?
Yeah, so roughly, so the tax allocation district is starting to perform. So on average, so looking at 2018, 2017, the past, it's roughly $32 million or so that have been pulled in from the tax allocation district. Now, we go out and we try to get federal funds. We go out and get philanthropic funds. We do fee-for-service work as well. And on top of that, we'll generate potentially another $30 million. And that's stretching it, but it just depends on if we are successful in getting federal grants or not, either with the Environmental Protection Agency, DOT, and other sources. So, but it fluctuates significantly.
And of that annual, how much is that sort of allocated towards land acquisition? And the reason why I was asking, I know you alluded with the West Side purchase, that there was this need to still secure funding for that. And so just kind of understanding how much of that budget is allocated to land acquisition and how much is this potential West Side?
Yeah, and we try to be opportunistic with regards to our acquisition fund. So with that T-SPLOST that was advanced 2 years ago, so I think roughly $300 million was raised for that, and about $60 million of that was dedicated to Beltline land acquisition. And so that's what the monies we're using to do land acquisition. And so that answers your question.
And then, okay. And then with the 9 o'clock, I know you talked about still the trouble of,
Right.
I
The
guess
northwest section.
the
yeah.
9 to 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Sure.
What's the trouble that you guys are having with the land acquisition?
It's a money issue as well, but it's also that it's an active railroad line
Gotcha.
that exists there right now. So we cannot advance until the owners of that land are ready to have a discussion about selling or not selling. But that is the biggest challenge there.
And then just my last question, just to understand clearer, you stated annually is it looks like about 60 million annual.
It could be, depending on grants and philanthropic dollars that we get. Right.
So what's the breakdown? You can break down for me what that budget is. Like what is your largest cost?
It is debt service for the most part. So we have bonds that we have to pay back. There are pilot payments that are right off the top. So you may be familiar that we pay a pilot payment every year to APS. And so debt service is probably the biggest chunk of expense that we have on our books right now. And then from there, we'll try to dedicate a portion of our monies to trail development, to park development, to transit. So all of the elements that I talked about that we're responsible for, we'll divvy the remaining funds that we have to those areas.
What percentage of that would you say is catered just to debt service?
Off of the $30 million that we bring in, debt service is a good portion. I would say it's about 60% of that portion.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know I asked a lot of questions. Thank
No,
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to
Thank you,
come and
Cynthia.
tell all of us about the great things that are going on at the
Thank you,
Beltline.
Cynthia.
During the course of your presentation, there were a lot of pictures of adorable children. Yeah, that would be one of them.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the specific ways in which the Beltline has and is beginning to involve itself more in the lives of our schools and our kids?
Absolutely. So again, thank you for that question. I would say we are in strong discussion right now about ways to advance a partnership between APS and the Beltline. I want to say the biggest thrust right now is giving students an opportunity. So when you think about the Beltline, people think about a trail, you think about parks, but there's science behind that. And so one of the things that we are very intentional in doing is working with APS schools to give students an exposure to what we do from a career perspective every day, and give them exposure to some of the science and engineering that goes behind building the Beltline. And so that's something that I'm particularly interested in. So that is really the thrust of ways that we work with APS. We're also talking in some detail about how to create a system where kids can get to schools that are off of the Beltline. Can you create a safe corridor off of the Beltline where people perhaps don't need to get on a bus to get into school, and how can the Beltline facilitate that type of infrastructure? Thank you.
I just want to make a strong point that one of the things that's most essential to us changing the trajectory that some of our families are on is our wraparound services, and I consider this to be one of them.
Yes.
Having access to safe and clean, parks and recreation areas is really important, and this is a really important component of that. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
And thank you. And also wanted to make sure that people know about an effort by the original founder of the Beltline called Beltline Rail Now. They're advocating for funding to complete the transit, the light rail along the Beltline, which again, I think we are going to need many different ways, as you brought up, to get our children to school. Certainly could be a large component of some, more innovative transit.
Indeed.
Hopefully. So
Indeed.
I hope everybody will join in that. You had mentioned the BAHAB, the Beltline Affordable Housing Advisory Board. Those meetings are quarterly. Our next one will be May 14th. They're from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Beltline headquarters in the old Equitable building.
Yes.
And open to the public. And also we'll be having a joint presentation to the public for TADAC.
Yes.
I can't remember the.
Yes, that's our Tax Allocation
Tax
District
Allocation
Advisory
Board.
Board. Yeah.
Okay, and then BAHAB, which again advises on the increment from, anytime a bond is issued, there's an increment that goes to affordable housing. And we give Alva Hardy, who's in the back of the room as well, sits on that. We have several appointments to that from the Atlanta Board of Education, give advice as to how those funds should be spent, which are never very great in number.
Right.
But, and I think maybe pointing out that anytime there's a potential to acquire land, that is certainly very important, so that can be permanent affordability that is
Absolutely.
built on top of that. So,
Well said.
and
Well said.
I will take this point to mention, because I know that you guys are not fond of doing this yourselves, but the number of units, the 5,600 number of units, was calculated and promised as a fixed number back when the original math was done on this, which we all know went out the window with the recession. So I applaud you in still holding that up as your goal that you're trying to meet, but also think people need to understand and be reasonable about what has happened in the interim between those two things. So just appreciate the work you can do to get as far down the road as you can.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you,
Yeah.
and thank you for your leadership on BAHAB as well. That is a key group that we use to get advice, and your points are well taken.
And the last one I just want to point out, I know that y'all have been extremely diligent in trying to reach out and work with, individual schools or, form those partnerships. And I really do appreciate it. Jill, you've been trying for years. And sometimes those connections work and sometimes they don't. But I just appreciate the persistence and the dedication to wanting to incorporate our schools and families with that. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue.
Thank you again, Mr. Higgs, for being here. To that point, I want to make sure that Jill is connected to Rachel Sprecher. I assume so, but just making sure our partnerships person is back there.
They are connected. They are absolutely connected. Yes. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good. I want to talk more about equity and inclusion. Ms. Sykes, would love to hear more about what that is as it relates to the Beltline and the work that she's doing, her team's doing.
Absolutely. So we are ecstatic to have Nanette on board with us. She's been here for about a year. And so you may remember that slide when I talked about our core values for the Beltline. The first piece was equity, making sure that the Beltline is a place for all. And so this is going to happen in waves, in phases. And so the first piece was to look in a mirror, to look at ABI specifically, and to make sure that we had the necessary sensitivities in our organization, to have this conversation. So we've had several trainings internally to talk about what that means and to come up with our own framework about what equity and inclusion means. So we actually have a working vision statement behind that and what equity means to the Beltline. And then ultimately, we hope to operationalize, equity and inclusion in everything that we touch, the way we procure, where we build trail, how we do housing. It is truly going to be operationalized within our organization. And then kind of the third wave is how can we be leaders within the city to advance this discussion about equity and inclusion? So we're still in the early phases. That's a long-winded way of saying we're still processing that through, but it's something that is important, and it will be woven through the entire organization.
Thank you for that. Along those lines, the art and history on the Beltline, I think, has been incredibly important and a value add, I think, on the west side and east side. Having
Absolutely.
African American history on the Beltline has been
Right.
awesome.
Absolutely, thank you.
Karshik Sims Alvarado, I know,
Yes.
partnered. I think we've had APS students on field trips go out to the Beltline and see those exhibits.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those are the type of things that we will continue to do. And art for us is an additional way to have a community discussion. And so I did not mention in my presentation, but before we make any significant move for Beltline development, we go to the community in a significant way. We have a very robust community engagement program, and they help us to have that conversation. And art is one of the ways that that we do that with the community.
Great. Mr. Higgs, Beltline staff, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Higgs. All right, for our second presentation, we have our Chief Engagement Officer, Angela King-Smith. She'll come forward and talk us through a couple of updates related to staff engagement, as well as our new K-12 Insight tool called Let's Talk, which is really about customer service for our students and staff and families all over the APS community. Ms. King-Smith, you may take it away.
Thank you, Board Chair Estevez, Vice Chair Collins, and the members of the Board of Education. Today I would like to share an update regarding our culture initiative. 5 years ago, we embarked on the work of the strategic plan, and an important part of that plan was focused around culture and climate. At this time, I'm going to share with you a current status regarding some of our engagement work. Today, I will focus on a couple of things. One, to give you an update on our 2019 employee engagement results for Atlanta Public Schools, and I also will be officially kicking off our new initiative to improve customer service across the district. And so today it will be two parts to my presentation. One focused around workplace culture, and then the second part focused on our new initiative. To create a culture of collaboration and engagement with both our internal and external stakeholders, we want to ensure that the values of the organization are in alignment with our APS mission and our vision, and that is our purpose of our division of engagement, which is comprised of 5 different teams. Our partnerships and development team, which is led by our executive director, Rachel Sprecher. Our communications and public engagement team led by Ian Smith, our strategy and organizational change team led by Travis Norvell, our family and alumni engagement team led by Keisha Copeland, and our charter system and school governance team led by Carolyn Barnett. And I just want to thank all of those individuals who I believe are in the audience for all of their hard work, focused around helping us to build our division of engagement and to connect with our stakeholders, our families, our communities, and our partners across the district. I am going to give you a quick, back up. I wanted to give you a quick update because most of this is focused around our division of engagement and our engagement results, but we have an upcoming election for our GO teams, and just wanted to highlight for you that election process is happening beginning April 16th through the 24th. We have 128 seats that are open, 64 parent seats and 64 staff seats. But as of today, we have 263 folks who are running for election. 66% of our schools have contested races, and 47% of our schools have contested staff races. This is more than we've had at any other point in our election process, and I just wanted to make sure I highlight that before I go into the details around employee engagement, because our Go Team elections are so important to our work. So I just wanted to highlight that before I get into our actual employee engagement results. So let's take a look. Back 5 years ago, we started building a foundation for a strong culture, and really started to lay out some of the important facets to that culture. It included everything from really helping to build out our strategic plan, the work around SEL, all of the work around building a culture with our employees and our staff. We piloted a number of tools, and we have expanded that work over the past 5 years. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of background as well as give you actual results for 2019. We started our work around our Gallup strengths. We continue to use this as a tool today. We know that if we focus around what's strong versus what's wrong, we'll get stronger engagement with our staff, which will lead to longevity, attendance, productivity, and improved speed and precision. And what Gallup tells us is that it also shows up in terms of less absenteeism, fewer safety incidents, less turnover, better and higher customer satisfaction, as well as higher productivity. What you see on the screen is from Gallup, their results and that they've conducted through a major white paper back a couple of years ago. But I want to share with you kind of our current results as it stands in terms of our progress for culture and climate here in the district. In terms of employee attendance, you see that we've just decreased. We are down from 19% from 2015 to 2018, where we are in terms of the number of days from 14 days to now 11 days per teacher. Our employee retention has increased in terms of 14 percentage points. Our manager capacity training, we saw that managers that took our high-performing teacher leader training, they increased their engagement results with their staff, and our employee engagement results have increased. Where we were was 29%, and today we're at 45% in 2019. Also, in terms of our department effectiveness, we take a satisfaction survey each year, and so that also has improved in terms of the number of departments that have been rated as either effective or very effective. And then the workplace climate also, we've seen a decrease of the number of employees in terms of the complaints from 2014 to 2018. Here are the actual detailed results from our Gallup survey. We have had tremendous improvement in this area. Now, based off of the Gallup results, APS is on par with other K-12 organizations. Several years ago, we were far below what was the district or the K-12 average across the country. In terms of the number of employees who are fully engaged in their jobs. And what does engagement mean? Engaged employees, they are fully productive in their work sites, they are emotionally connected to their work, and they have a strong commitment to the organization, and they are more productive and more likely to stay in the organization. Today, if you look at our Gallup results, we have 45% of our employees who are engaged, and that is up from 29%. And as you can see Gallup K-12 is at 45%. So we are on par with other large K-12 organizations across the country. The other thing that we see in our summary results is that the actual number has gone up. You'll recall that the Gallup, they can score anywhere from 1 to 5 on the survey. There are 12 main questions on the survey. We've gone up from 3.66 in 2014 to today 3.93 in 2019. We saw improvements and increases on 11 out of the 12 questions that are on the survey. Our participation rate is maintaining. We are at 76%. We had 4,494 full-time employees participate in the survey. And you'll see there's been some other awesome achievements on the Gallup Q12. Our number of principals, we saw the number of principals who are engaged led the way with 24% percentage point increase in their engagement. Our APs also went up 10 percentage points. And we overall, like I said before, we moved from 29% to 45%. And we saw all of our school levels, middle, high, as well as our high school, all of them had increases, and you'll see that in just a moment. And then this just kind of summarizes everything that I mentioned. But the one thing I want to highlight on this slide is that we are 57th in the database in comparison to, we were at 5 way back in 2014. In comparison to other large K-12 districts, we are now number 57th. That shows our percentage rate. Here it just shows the trend over time from fall of 2015. We were 5th at 3.66, and today we are 3.93, and we are 57th in that K-12 database. And then you can see to the far right, the dark green shows where the K-12 database is in comparison to their corporate database that has other large organizations in it. Our engagement continues to grow, and you can just kind of see over time, again, the details in terms of the number of staff that are engaged, not engaged versus actively disengaged. And this just shows the trend from fall of 2014 down to our last results, which was this past spring. And then this shows all of the questions on the Q12. There are 12 questions on the Q12. And so it shows from highest to lowest in terms of each question. And the lighter green shows you the number of staff members that rated that as a 5, which means strongly agree, that they strongly agree that they have progress, that someone cares about them in their work environment, that they have the materials and equipment they need to do their job, which is Q12. The top 3, progress, expectations, and development and materials, are some of our stronger questions. And so that, once again, they're ranked from highest to lowest. And this shows our results by principals, assistant principals, and teachers. You have to have over 100 in order for it to actually calculate engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged, which is why you do not see it for principals. We do not have over 100 principals, but you do see it for assistant principals, and you also see it for teachers. And so you can see that, once again, the bright green shows kind of the numbers in terms of those that are actively engaged. And this shows the engagement trend from fall of 2016 to spring 2019 for our elementary, our middle, and our high school staff. And it shows the increases in terms of the number of engaged, and to this spring of 2019. And you can see there's dramatic increases from fall of 2016 to spring of 2019. And then you can also see both for principals, assistant principals, and for teachers. And so we believe that most of our work is going to be focused around trying to increase our teacher, our frontline staff, our teachers who are in the building. We want to continue to move those numbers up. We've gotten strong progress in a lot of our major stakeholder groups, from our principals, assistant principals, as well as our central office teams. But we want to continue to move the teacher number up. So this concludes my presentation on employee engagement results for 2019. I am going to switch gears to talk about our customer service initiative, but if you'd like to go ahead and jot down any questions that you might have regarding our employee engagement results, I will take them at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of switch gears. This part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about our customer service initiative, which is brand new. I'm also going to do a demonstration as a part of this presentation for this section of today. Okay, so what's on the screen, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this. What's on the screen is our purpose around this new customer service initiative. The Atlanta Public Schools Customer Experience Program is designed to provide quality customer service for all stakeholders in Atlanta Public Schools. Our mission is to raise expectations and to increase satisfaction for every stakeholder who makes contact with an employee in an APS school or department. And so the focus of this initiative is a couple of things. We want to focus on a couple of key things. So we want to focus on, one, creating a customer service experience that's focused on excellence. We want to define customer service expectations and standards. We want to communicate the benefits of great service, and we want to outline everybody's role in that process, and then set and monitor service goals. A key component for that, there's going to be three major parts to this major initiative. One, focusing on building capacity of all of our APS employees on the expectations and standards for customer service. Two, implementing the Let's Talk tool to capture feedback, complaints, and compliments. It's a tool to help us to engage in two-way communication with our internal and our external stakeholders. It's a tool for communication. And then three, it's really communicating, letting our stakeholders know that this platform exists and how they can utilize this platform to engage in an internal or an external dialogue. We will be rolling this project out in a couple of different phases. We just got started. We had our first internal kickoff with the vendor, and we are getting things set up and established. We have established an internal project team to really get the work going, because a lot of the work will be getting our systems up and running, setting and helping to set standards, and then working with our front office staff in each of our buildings, departments, and our schools. And so what we know is that this is going to be a major launch for day one for 2019. And so you will be hearing more from us, but today is an opportunity for you to see the tool and for you to hear a little bit more about the initiative. Also in the audience, I just want to recognize that Michael Bascarino and Lynn First are also in the audience from our Let's Talk team, and are available after the presentation to have any questions addressed if need be. But I feel like I'm pretty well versed in the tool. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick demo in just one moment. Our goals for the tool itself is really to help cross-department and school site collaboration. There is not a single tool that integrates in terms of customer service across all major schools, all major departments and teams. We have a number of different tools and we have a number of different processes, but we do not have one across the system. But this Let's Talk tool will allow us to do that. It will simplify the process to connect people, both with the administration as well as for the Board of Education. It will create consistency in terms of expectations and responsiveness across departments, and it will help us to establish department protocols that are consistent to ensure a positive customer experience. So there's going to be a lot of things that will need to be set up. The tool has been used in a number of different districts in Georgia and across the country. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you just a little bit about the tool and how to kind of use the tool. Let's see. Here we go. Hold on one moment. Here we go. So our goal with the tool is to help build strong relationships with our stakeholders. We want both strong relationships to be able to have that conversation both internally and externally. As many of you know, our website is in need of some work. And so right now there's not a single point on the website that makes it super easy to be able to connect with a department that you might have an issue with or a question that you might need to have answered. And so this tool will allow us to be able to connect with our external and our internal customers. And then also it will allow us to help us to streamline a lot of processes. Again, we have a couple of different phone numbers that people can call, but this allows for people to make direct contact with APS. And then it helps us on the administration side to make informed decisions in terms of like where the most needs in terms of customer service and support. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn Herschel so that they can see the screen. I'm going to go ahead and get into our little demonstration. And I'm going to explain how it all works. Okay. Can they, Herschel, can they see? Okay, there we go. All right, so here they've modeled out what a typical website might look like. This is Model Community School District. And like many web school websites, you've got your tabs across the top. You also may have your little icons to reach Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. And in this case, they have created a Let's Talk icon. And you can get to Let's Talk in a couple different places. So here at the top right-hand corner, next to a little Twitter bird, you can see the Let's Talk emblem. A stakeholder or a parent could click on that icon. They also could click on the Contact Us, and when they click on the Contact Us, it also would help you to get to the Let's Talk platform. And then you see right here, we also have a tab down here at the right, on the bottom, that also shows how to get to the Let's Talk platform. So there's multiple ways to get to the Let's Talk platform. Today, I'm going to go ahead and click this right here, the bottom right hand. When you pop this up, you will start a conversation, and when you start a conversation, you would select a particular topic or a dialogue to begin the conversation. And so you would use the various drop downs to reach a particular department, or I'm going to go into another one, to the other Contact Us, to the web page part. And then here you'll see there are different buttons. There are different buttons to reach Let's Talk. And so if there are certain things that are kind of hot topics within the district, boundary change or bus route, inclement weather, school calendar, a parent or a stakeholder could go and click any of these any button that's relevant to that particular concern. Or if they know the central office department, oftentimes parents don't know which central office department needs to be reached, but if they know that there's something in particular that they want to get to, maybe assessments, because they know the milestones are coming up and they want to know what the testing schedule is like, they could click that particular button. Or any of the elementary schools, middle schools, or high schools could be listed, and that's how they could get to it. And in this case, they also have some additional buttons down here at the bottom. For the sake of it, I'm going to go ahead, because I know we're in that season right now. If I'm a parent and I'm not sure exactly when is the assessment window, when is my student going to be taking the milestones exam, I would go in and I would click in assessments. I would go in here and I would type in my question. Anything that has a star, it's required. So I've got a question. They also could list a comment, a suggestion, a concern, or a compliment. They would type in their question here. Is my first grader, okay, that's a trick question, taking the milestone? And then they would type in their question in here. Maybe there's an attachment. Maybe they received some sort of test packet before the break. And then they would tell them a little about who they are, that we would find this out. They would click, maybe I'm a student, maybe I'm a parent or guardian, maybe I'm an employee, maybe I'm a community member. In this case, I would be a parent. And then they would list out how they could be reached. And so, for the sake of time, I'm going to try to complete this quickly. Oh, wait, that's the wrong thing. I've never done a live demonstration like this at a board meeting. Okay. And then they would simply submit it. Let's see if I completed it right. Yay. So then it will go off, and based off of the particular question, the parent would immediately receive some form of communication. They would see it on their screen. They would also get it in their email box, but the respective department would also receive the communication. They would get the communication, they'd be able to respond directly back to the parent to say, guess what, your first grader doesn't take milestones, no worries. But they may be able to attach particular testing calendar in the window or additional information relevant to be able to close out the issue. The nice thing about this is that, okay, so Herschel, we're going to go back to my PowerPoint presentation. So this is the part that is not live. I just have a couple screenshots because this is going to be much harder to do. In the district, we'll be able to monitor how long that question, complaint, suggestion has been sitting out there. We can also connect this to the district's Twitter account, Instagram account, Facebook account. So if people have questions out there in kind of cyberspace, we'll be able to capture that information. It also can be used as a way to capture information when people call into the district, or if they happen to walk into a particular department, front desk, and they've got a particular question. It's a way to also be able to kind of log some big concerns that may be available. So here I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the screenshots. This can be used on any sort of mobile device. You do not have to have a computer, but if you happen to have a mobile device, you can do it that way. You can do it on the web. We can log things in here via a phone. Here is just kind of the landing page, the dialogue forum, that's the tool that I was just using. And then it creates a workflow inside the district. And so different departments, we will be working with different departments to train them on how to be able to communicate with the stakeholders that reach out. There are also templates that allow for you to be able to answer some of those standard questions over and over again. They're already preformed, populated, and literally they can go in, change some basic information and be able to send that back to the customer. And then there is some reporting mechanisms within the tool where we can monitor where are the most questions that we're receiving, how quickly are those questions being addressed. In terms of the turnaround, are there certain ones that are currently outstanding that we currently have been unsuccessful in terms of resolving? So we'll also be able to report and monitor over time as well. So I wasn't able to do this as in a live demo, but wanted to let you know that there is this capability, and that's one of the things that makes this tool so easy to use, and that we're excited to get going with the tool. So what does success look like for us? It includes the adoption of the platform, both internally and externally, with our stakeholders, all of our stakeholders. It is really trying to improve the customer experience from their perspective so that it's easy to use, that their problems are solved quickly, that it enables collaboration and quick resolution. And then finally, it provides a common platform and tool for all APS staff to improve efficiency and effectiveness of service. So that's kind of what we're right now from this starting point are looking to hopefully improve and shape over time. So this concludes my second part of my presentation, focused around our customer service and customer experience initiative. And I'm happy to take questions on either employee engagement or our brand new initiative, working in partnership with K-12 Insight on Let's Talk. Or if you have any questions about the upcoming election with our Go teams, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Angela. I think we should break it up. Let's go with let's start with Let's Talk first.
Sure.
And then, so questions regarding Let's Talk, and then we'll go into employee engagement and then miscellaneous.
Okay.
All right, so Let's Talk. Cynthia, Candace, Erica? Nope, Cynthia, Candace, Leslie.
Thank you, Angela. This sounds like a tool that we really will be able to make use of and hopefully give everyone an opportunity to give us more direct engagement. A couple of questions. First, I noticed on the feedback form there was a place for someone to give contact information, and it said, if you don't give your contact information, we can't respond. But then there was a box at the bottom to check to say, please let us know if you don't want your contact information shared with the district. How does that work? How does that preserve the privacy of someone who, for whatever reason, does not want the person, the response to be to them?
Yes.
And how, what is the accessibility of that information by the district? Bluntly, when it says, if you don't want the district to know it, does that really mean that the district doesn't know it?
Yes. Yes, it means that we won't really know it. So this is a cloud platform. And so the software doesn't actually sit inside Atlanta Public Schools. It sits on a cloud with K-12 Insight. So that's one thing. The other thing is that little checkbox, if you wish to withhold your name, we won't see it. The district won't actually see the name. K-12 will basically utilize the information to kind of be the conduit between the district and the person who's sending in the concern or the compliment, whichever one. And so we'll be able to respond, but there will be that conduit to be able to get the information to the appropriate email address. So that accessibility is there in order to build trust, or if there is a concern within, with the particular stakeholder. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, for instance, I am an employee at, I don't know, North Atlanta High School, and I have a concern about someone, another employee.
Yes.
And I obviously don't want you to out me.
Yeah.
For fear of retaliation. So what would happen is I express my concern, and K-12 Insights would send that not as Cynthia Briscoe Brown says,
right,
but somebody says there's this problem at North
yes.
Atlanta High School.
Yeah. So the one thing I do want to stress is that our APS hotline is not going anywhere, and that is where any sort of employee concerns needs to be directed. If there is some sort of employee issue that needs to remain private, that is the appropriate channel for the concern of that matter to be directed. However, we know that when we bring this tool online, there may be some confusion on which tool do I go to where. It would remain private or confidential. We wouldn't actually be able to reach back out to that employee specifically, but we'd be able to kind of be able to facilitate where we would probably send them a note saying, this is where we would like for you to direct your concern, and this is where you could be able to get assistance through the portal.
And then I noticed on the slide that talked about the different places that one could direct a comment or a question, that it never got, and maybe I just missed it, but it didn't get below the department level.
It actually
is it
does.
not possible to
No.
get to a particular individual? Can I not contact my child's coach and say XYZ?
Most of it will be directed at the department or the school. And so it will go to the school. You will say, hey, I'm trying to reach this particular individual, and then we will facilitate that getting to where it needs to go. It will not be like an employee directory where all 5,000 employees are listed in terms of the buttons, but you'll be able to say, hey, I'm trying to reach this coach at North Atlanta High. This is the particular concern or question I have, and then it will be facilitated. We will have various folks at each school or department to help us to get the things routed appropriately.
And then we'll be able to do some sort of follow-up to make sure that the concern really did get routed to the coach and the coach really did respond.
Yes. Yes.
Even though the coach is not actually in this system or directly accountable.
Yes, which is why this is going to require lots of training, and we are thinking about how to phase this appropriately, because really it's very possible that multiple employees across the district will be touched in terms of being able to understand that this needs to be resolved quickly. How do I get it resolved if there's a particular concern?
One more, very short one. How many different kinds of devices is Let's Talk available on? Because not all of our families have internet access at home. Can they access it from their phones?
Yes.
Can they access it from a public computer at a library?
Yes.
And is it also accessible by phone, or by like actual old-fashioned old people phone call as opposed to typing
In
in?
terms of teleprompt, like a teleprompt, press 1 for this, or
Yeah,
that's a good
just
question.
because
I
of
don't
our,
know
our
about the
families
teleprompt.
that don't, particularly I'm thinking, I work with some grandparents and great-grandparents that really don't know how to use apps.
I think their representative is there.
Yes, do you mind answering the teleprompt question?
Sure. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Just speak into the mic.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Just speak way up.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So we do offer you one phone number with your Let's Talk account where people can call in and either leave voicemails or you can have folks who answer that phone number and record the conversations in Let's Talk. We also offer the ability for people who are answering the phones already to enter those phone calls in the Let's Talk system and direct them to the right person. So it's not like a press 1 and your message ends up in there, but there are a couple of ways to bring in both phone calls and then drop in visits as well.
So I can call the school and say, I need to talk to this coach about this problem, and the receptionist at the school can put it into Let's Talk. Oh, that's
Yes,
great.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a way to capture it across all of our departments, teams, and schools. Yes.
Thank you. That's very helpful. That's all.
But one of the things that we are working to do as a part of this process is to actually determine what level of things go into the tool.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine we receive lots of calls every day at all of our major sites and locations. And so part of this work will be really understanding and thinking through our standards as well as our protocols for this process. So just
I
wanted
think
to keep
that's
that
an
in mind.
important point, because that example, I'm not sure realistically if every phone call we would be logging into the system, it would become a bureaucratic nightmare. So we want to make it so that it's user-friendly and not burdensome for employees.
But once it's in Let's Talk, it does allow us to track responsiveness, and that to me is one of the real positive features of this tool, that we can make sure that concerns and questions don't, kind of disappear into a black hole.
Right. So I think that's why we're striking that right balance of the right level of standard operating procedures and having alignment across the district around what kinds of things have to get logged in and which things don't. It's going to be an important part of the work that we have before us over the next several months.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the main questions I was going to ask as to, what will there be protocols as to which types of concerns, compliments, questions will be logged onto Let's Talk and or required to be, to Cynthia's questions, logged on to Let's Talk. Relatedly, and thank you, Angela, for your presentation on both this and the engagement piece. Relatedly, I guess to that is, if I am a stakeholder, why would I use Let's Talk versus just emailing or calling or another form of communication? I mean, what I'm hearing in terms of benefits from the stakeholders' perspective, a potential for anonymity that Cynthia addressed, and perhaps the idea that your query is going to go more directly to a certain department?
Yes, so at one of our community meetings that we had a couple months ago, one of the families was struggling on how to reach out. They talked with the school, but they didn't know how to get support for their student who was dealing with something in particular. And so they didn't know what to do. They didn't know who to call. And so I have found that in a lot of the conversations that I have with parents and families, it's like, okay, well, I can call the school, but if there's other folks that I could be reaching out to in the district to get my student help, who should that be? Who do I call? Another family was struggling on they didn't know, they were struggling with something related to bus transportation. They didn't realize that we had our own bus transportation call center and that they could have gotten that question answered. And so oftentimes what happens is they will call the superintendent's office, or they will stop at the school, but there's other resources that are available to help them. And our website is so confusing that and it's unfortunate, but some of the stuff is cached, that old information is out there. And so this allows them in one quick, seamless way with maybe max 3 clicks, they can get directly to where they need to go. And the part that's important is that it has to be responsive. And when they start to see that they're getting results, they're getting the information that they need in a timely way, then that's when we'll start to, be able to help crack the nut in terms of like the frustrating experience of like, I don't know where to go. I don't know who to call. Yeah. And so we're trying to simplify that for our stakeholders.
And given that, is it then our goal and your recommendation that this be the primary tool for feedback for stakeholders?
I think we're trying to move that direction because we need to train front office staff. We need to train. There's the online process that has to get set up. It has to go to someone who knows what to do when it's received. They'll need to be able to answer the question in an appropriate way and to be able to be responsive. But it is our goal that we want to try and move towards that. And we're going to use day one as kind of that major launch to get the application up and running in the district.
And so this, as to that training and the employee kind of element of this, and it sounds like there's work to be done as to designating employees who are going to be fielding, tracking, monitoring, and ultimately responding to these. And that's the obvious piece that has to happen here for the system to work in the way that you've described. And so is there a start to the plan for that? I mean, is this going to be an additional responsibility on people to meet that expectation?
I think for some, it may be an additional responsibility. For others, hopefully we're going to just kind of swap out what they're currently doing. They might have a manual process and a manual log that they're doing and they're taking and they're trying to report and track. In other places, they've got Google, docs and forms that they're using to replace and track. And others, it's going to be more of like an integration because we do have some call centers in the district right now. And so it may not make sense to replace this tool with that tool because there is a lot of work that's already been done with those particular tools. So what we're planning to do, because we know that we've filled a lot of questions, especially during the day one time frame, is to figure out what makes the most sense to move to this platform for day one, because we automatically receive a ton of calls, whether it's for registration or enrollment or buses, bus routes, the calendar. We're going to try and move to that for this. We also have been working with a few departments who have volunteered to step up and say, hey, we're willing to be, kind of the pilot for this tool. And we're trying to hopefully pilot some things with summer school and some of the summer Power Up programs so that we can kind of get things up and moving before day one.
Right.
Yes.
And this may be a question more for one of the representatives of Let's Talk, but I assume the hot topics portion of the platform is something that's a living part of the platform for obvious reasons, and in other words, that it changes based on some sort of tracking mechanism to determine what is hot or not, which I like. Are there other parts of the platform that are similar to that we can modify or change, if we wanted to tailor it to some of the specific needs of our district?
So the hot topics I do know is configurable, and we can adjust it based off of what's happening in the district, whether we're on winter break or whether it is day one or whether it's the summertime, and we can adjust those. But Lynn, if you want to address other parts that are configurable.
Yeah, absolutely. So the entire platform is really configurable. All those topics you see, the departments we listed, those are created by the school district. So if on Tuesday night something happens and you want a button up there, it takes about 5 minutes to create that, and then those conversations can start rolling in. So really a lot of things you can configure, from the way that it looks, the color scheme, the information you provide at the top of the form. There are campaign templates, email templates you can send out from within Let's Talk. There are a lot of things that you can do with the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
I think I sense some excitement. You seem very positive about this. I am very excited, and thank you all for bringing this to the table. I think there is, want to make a couple of points. If there are issues that have to deal with ethics and compliance hotline or fraud, waste, and abuse, those are still found under the Office of Internal Compliance.
Yes.
That hotline will not be merged into this, but this may feed some things there if they get recorded the wrong way.
Yes.
But there will be a way to bridge all of the communication that comes in with this, so it won't not catch things. I've noticed on some of the other districts when they implement this, they have a specific button for bullying. So there could be, like, a hot topic could be, do you want to report bullying? The other thing would be issues, like if we wanted to do major surveys, if we're looking at redistricting and proposing boundaries and such, if we're looking at floating another East Blast, referendum or something like that, taking the proposal, putting it live online, and getting people's response to that. I think we've never experienced something like that. We have to have people show up at a meeting in person on 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, and if they're not there, we're not getting their feedback as well. And I really am excited about the potential for listening to a huge swath of folks that we haven't listened to before. So I'm excited about that as well.
Can I just interject on the bullying comment? We also recently implemented our See Something, Say Something tool. And so if there is a bullying situation or some major crisis, that a lot of that can be directed to that tool and phone number. And so again, similar to what you were saying about the hotline, we can direct those back to our See Something, Say Something tool. But I just wanted to highlight that tool is exclusively to really support some of the things that are happening in our schools, or if there is a concern in a school related to bullying or some sort of student crisis.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but I think I missed missed that. So if I were concerned about something and went and bullying, it would feed to that, which is okay, great. Cynthia, you've brought up this example for years of, thinking that the phone to call transportation about a late bus or something rings in a closet that's locked and nobody ever answers. And this is the answer to all of that, I think. Everything that every phone call I've got, every email I've received over the past 2 years since I've known about this, I'm going, oh my gosh, like if we just had it, like I could feed it to the right place. And I think what this is a giant communication funnel. So anything and everything somebody wants to know about or ask about or whatever, we can listen to now. And it comes in and it gets directed to wherever it needs to go, and all of that and I really would like anybody who's interested to see a much more robust back end capability to this, if we're willing to share that. at some point, just to understand exactly what happens when this comes in. If you have someone who is emailing you 500 times about one issue, that's different than having 500 people email you about an issue. So understanding their patterns of communication on all that it's easy to discern. So I just thank you very much for bringing this to reality. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset to the district and to our stakeholders. I did want to point out, too, I know that we have in our System of Excellent Schools framework the measurements, measures that we had looked at. There was a list of, do we need more information on this or ways to get this information when we're looking at building these out. And I really see lots of potential for the survey capability involved here to be able to feed and help that. So the ability to have surveys of larger groups of folks, we'll go back to the engagement tool, which is just for the employees, but to have surveys of our entire parent population, our student population, and all those things feeding into a trusted framework that we can get feedback on, I think will hopefully benefit this as well. So, thank you.
All right, if we can move into the teacher engagement, employee engagement, sorry.
Sure.
And thank you to the representatives of K-12 Insights for being here. So questions about engagement, Candace, Erica, Leslie. And if we can speed up just a little bit.
Okay, I'll go quickly. Slide, well, I'll skip that one. Okay, so it looks like there was a trend. You're saying that there's been a trend towards increased engagement, you would say, as an overall assessment of the data.
Yes.
And so, why? If you could give, in your opinion, 3 reasons why we're seeing that trend, what would they be?
So one thing I would say is that we've worked really closely with our key leaders here in the district, and what Gallup has found, and I think is true for us, is that if your leaders are engaged, then that will trickle down and cascade down to the other parts of the organization. And so we started this work with our expanded cabinet, which consists of our principals and our central office directors. That's where we started. And they have worked extremely hard within their departments, their teams, and their divisions. So I want to give a shout out to my peers on the senior cabinet, because it would have we would not be where we are today without their real hard work. And I have to give a shout out to our associate superintendents. They have done tremendous work, and we saw a turn when this team came in. All of them have just done tremendous things within their schools, and that has resulted in the results that you see today. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them too. Y'all, yay! So I would say that's one thing. 2, we've been talking about it a lot. We redid our new employee orientation, working in partnership with Sky Duckett and Pam Hall, to really reformat that, so when employees come in, they get a sense of who we are as a school system and what we stand for in terms of our culture. Our mission and vision played a large part in that, and we want to get people bought into that as soon as they come in the door. And so we talk to them about strengths, we talk to them about SEL, we talk to them about culture, and that really just speaks volumes. And so they get off to such a really strong and positive start. And then the third thing is that we just keep pushing in terms of a positive experience for our staff and helping them to understand what an amazing work site looks like in terms of engagement. And that really is connected to our SEL work as well as our engagement work, our employee engagement work, and helping managers to understand what that looks like, and what role they play in helping to make that happen at their particular locations.
Thank you. One other quick question. Do you guys look at, or does the data allow you to look at trends around certain schools or clusters when it comes to engagement? And if so, what, if you happen to know, could you tell us a little bit about the trends that you're seeing along those lines?
So what I will say is that our associate superintendents, they have that information for their respective schools and clusters. But I would say overall, we're seeing positive engagement happen in all of our schools. North, south, east, west, small, big, large, poor, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you've got a strong manager who loves and cares for their staff, and they make them feel valued. That's what matters. And so we are just seeing really strong positive trends across the board in all of our clusters. You're welcome.
Yes, so I guess I've never really connected, I will say. It's supposed to be about our culture, and it's a lot of numbers, and you have to either like really be steeped in it to, get a lot out of it. What I want to know is, again, I think adding on to, what Candace was saying, like how is it used? If my understanding from the input of this was that it was anonymous. So if the input is anonymous, how is the export of it utilized? I mean, how do you know where things are happening and where you need to?
So it's not completely anonymous. We do know your work location, meaning like that goes to Gallup, and Gallup is able to do a roll-up of that at a particular work location. But as a manager, all I see is the actual roll-up of all the results. I don't actually see the specifics for particular individuals on my team, and that's the same across the board. And so each work site that has at least 5 or more staff, they receive a report. If there's less than 5, the anonymity can't be guaranteed, so Gallup will not create a report for us. And so we have the various rollouts for each school, department, or team that's more than 5, or they have to have at least 5 people to respond. And then there's a comprehensive kind of master roll-up, which is what you're seeing here, which is why we're able to see elementary versus middle versus high, or principals versus APs versus other staff.
But if you're the principal of, I mean, you don't have a lot of, anyway, there's not.
As a principal, what you see is just the people that report underneath you.
Right.
The master, meaning like all of the principals, the only lump score that you see is what you guys see on the particular page. I'm not sure which page that is. On page 17 and 18. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the only roll-up data that's available.
And do you anticipate, again, when we have I think a more facile ability to do surveys and do a larger, broader outreach with the Let's Talk is what I'm hoping, do you think it will be able to add to this is this tool, is this Q12 survey the only way, is obviously the primary way that we're trying to understand our workplace culture?
It's not the only way, which is why it's one way. It's one way. You want to be able to triangulate the data and get multiple data points to really understand what's happening in the building. So no, it's not one single piece of information. It's an important piece because it comes from a third party outside of Atlanta Public Schools, but it is an important piece that we've been using to kind of gauge and benchmark against other K-12 systems across the country. But similar, I think it's on page 9, slide 9. There are other things that help us to know what's going on in terms of culture, whether it's attendance, whether it's retention, whether it's the department effectiveness score, workplace climate, complaints. That helps you to know what's kind of going on in the building. And so you want to use multiple pieces of data to be able to understand what's happening. You don't want to just use one piece of information.
Okay.
For Member Grant, I would just add, we treat it just like, for us at the school level, it's treated just like a summative test score would be, where the principal gets at the end of the year test score data, and we look at it as associate soups and look at it school by school and look at trend data. But once you get the test scores back, you have to do some digging underneath that,
Right.
where you use more formative data points to help inform what you actually do to take action on that data. But
Okay.
I would think of it in the same way as a summative assessment.
Okay,
in
so,
the school
okay,
year.
I mean, I guess that's the thing is, you know, in terms of trying to change and improve workplace culture, this is one tool, a box of things that is being utilized and, okay.
Yes.
And it is it something that we are using, I guess, as a training? You know, like, once we sort of understand, will we continue to use this? Because I know there's a cost to it. You know, is there a balance on how much this costs over the long haul versus, you know, if we feel comfortable figuring out some other way to understand this that, you know, just internally to the organization. Does that make sense?
I think it's important because it is, we need to continue to look at it and kind of balance it in terms of the trade-offs with it. But one, it is a standardized tool that other K-12 districts use. Two, it's data that we don't, it comes from a third party, so it's validated in that way. And then the third thing is we're seeing positive results when we're doing the training and helping managers to understand what their role is in terms of helping to create a strong workplace culture. We've found that 70% of the leaders that have taken our high-performing training in partnership with Gallup, that they have actually saw, you know, improvements in their data in terms of just how people are feeling in those particular schools or work sites.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's validated and standardized is key. I think that there are internal data points and measures that we should be looking at and using. That's very important. But given where APS has been and where it is, it is helpful to have that third-party validation, and it's a tool that is used by nonprofits, by school systems, by for-profits, major companies, all use this tool. So it enables APS to look at how it's doing, not only with other school systems, but also with nonprofits and
Yes.
and corporations. And it's just another place where we get validated,
Yes.
good or bad.
Good or bad.
When it first happened, it was
Not so good.
Not so good, and it's still a long way to go,
Yeah.
but getting better.
Yes.
So going back to Leslie's question, I just want to make sure principals, if I'm the principal at Douglas, I am able to see my score
Yes, for your school.
for my school,
Not-
and
yes.
and that is used. How do our principals evaluated? Is this one of their evaluation data points?
It's not a formal part of their leaks evaluation, but it is certainly one of the data points that we look at when we do an annual sort of data review for a school. It is one of the many data points we look at in talking to a principal about how things are going at their school. And so we're looking at what's the staff engagement like, particularly if we start seeing trend data that's going in one direction or another. Then the associate soups work with that principal in developing an engagement plan, and that's a specific intervention strategy based upon what the engagement scores are telling us.
And okay, cool. And I assume you can also roll it up into clusters, and departments could do teams and departments, and we're hopefully using that, or I know we're using those as evaluation all the way up the organization. Where are your areas of concern when you look? Because I see slide 16, and it looks like progress is being made in all of them except for expectations were decreased just a little bit.
Just slightly.
But looking overall,
So
Where are you
so
concerned?
an area that I want us to try and focus on, and we are engaging in a conversation with schools and academics, is how can we move the teacher number up? How can we increase their level of engagement faster? We saw a huge turnover. If you look on slide 17, if you just look at where principals were last spring, we had 57% that were that were engaged. As of this spring, we have 81%. That's huge in terms of the percentage. The same thing, huge increase from the APs from 58 to 68. But if you look at that teacher number, it has remained stagnant. And if you go back a couple years, I mean, it was like in the 20s and then it went to 30s, but we've maintained at 40 and 41% in terms of the engagement. So one, I think we need to help our principals to get their teachers even more engaged than where they are right now. Two, the questions on the slide 16, it does help us to kind of understand where our strengths are, and our strengths are, we do a really good job helping people know in terms of their expectations. We make sure that they have the materials and supplies that they need. In terms of expectations, we're pretty strong with expectations, but where we need to help, and I think it's relatively an easy one, is actually Q5, which is somebody at work cares about me, and showing that level of concern with staff. I think that's a relatively easy one that we could probably make a dent in pretty fast. The learn and grow is also another one that I think we can probably work toward, and that's within our teacher ranks. They are feeling like, you know, they want to have opportunities to learn and grow beyond what is required of them. And then best friend at work is always a hard one. But I think if we work on Q5 and Q12, that we'll see increases with number 10, which is around best friend at work.
Great. And we'll move forward to Lisa's presentation. But one thing I just heard Michelle Olympiadis ask is about staff, and in slide 17, whether teachers include staff of schools, counselors, support, psychologists, other instructional support staff.
You know, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't believe so. I think this is classroom instructor or paraprofessional staff.
So,
But we do count them. They're just not in this mass. They are here, but they're just not in this roll up right here that you're seeing right
Yeah.
here.
there are a couple of thousand people who are not.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, Angela King-Smith. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa Bracken, our CFO, will bring our finance.
Well, wait just a second.
Sorry, there's another question.
Oh, sorry about that. Quick question.
I would love to ask if there is somebody in the district who is tasked with ensuring that all of the Go Team information is on every single website of every traditional school, our partnership schools and whatnot, so that including, you know, who the current people are, the elections, the meeting dates, the meeting minutes, and if
Yes.
not, please.
We have a tiny but mighty staff who support all of our work around our Go Teams. Diane Jacoby, Shalonda, and Carolyn Barnett are really focused on, you know, supporting our work with that. We are trying to empower our Go Teams so that they can be able to do some of it, but we do a lot of checking.
Yeah.
We do a lot of checking, and we have a brand new tool, election tool this year. We've changed from one platform to the other to make it actually easier and more accessible. And so we're continuing to monitor and make sure that people have that information up and running. I can get that information to you in terms of like if there are particular schools that we're having any sort of issues with. I don't
Yeah.
have that information right here in front of me.
Okay, no, I'm not asking specifically. I just, if there's somebody that can please come through that.
Yes.
And specifically with the partnership schools, I don't know if that comes under Department of Innovation.
We have
Yeah.
to monitor that.
Yes.
We monitor our partnership schools to make sure that they are maintaining compliance with the GO teams. I will say that that's probably it is a little bit more challenging than our traditional schools, just because they have a different model. But we continue to monitor those GO teams as appropriate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Lisa, take two.
All righty. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mr. Jernigan. Today I'll present two topics related to finance. First, I'll provide you with the financials for FY 2019 for all activities occurring in the months of July through February within Fund 150, followed by an update on the current FY 2020 budget development process. With the next 4 slides, we will cover the FY 2019 financials for the first 8 months of the fiscal year. So far, we've collected about 82.56% of the total resources budgeted, with the local collections at 95.36%, state at 50.74%, and other, which includes the Fund 150 Title I transfer in, at 49.32%. We're currently tracking ahead of pace in all categories of revenue as compared to FY 2018, and we are beginning to feel a little bit more comfortable about achieving our budgeted revenue targets, although the pace of resolving those appeals continues to be unknown. We'll continue to monitor the pace of collections for local revenue as those appeals continue to be resolved. And as well, I'll discuss in just a moment in this presentation, we are altering our assumptions about how many of these appeals will actually carry over into next fiscal year's budgeting process. On slide 5, we see the budget to actual expenditures so far for FY 2019. We have currently spent 61.14% of budgeted allotments, and spending in all functions is appropriate, but slightly ahead of trend for this point as compared to last fiscal year. Slide 6 represents the current spending trend for FY19 against the FY18 trend. There is a variation in spending function by function, and in particular in general administration and in instruction. The jump in general administration is due to the timing of some significant payments in the IT budgets, and the increase in instruction is due to the timing in the charter payments. Remember last year we kind of trickled in those charter payments because of the spending freeze. So it's not something that we're concerned with right now, but we'll continue to watch the spending in those two functions. Please remember that the timing of large expenditures from one month to the next can greatly impact the percentage spend against the previous year, and detailed financials for these can be found in agenda item 10.05. We have no budget adjustments to bring this month, but in agenda item 10.06, you'll see the detailed information report for special revenue adjustments less than $1 million that have occurred in March. At this time, I'll go off script and provide a brief update to the current FY 2020 budget process. The next 14 slides were covered in detail at the March 25th Budget Commission meeting, and you can watch that Budget Commission meeting online from the board website, and those materials are posted on the Budget Commission webpage. Just to provide a quick revenue update, we're continuing to revise those updates, revise revenue as we continue to get information. We anticipate getting our local revenue projections in mid-April, and we'll get more confirmed numbers from the state in mid-April as well. Hopefully in time for the Budget Commission that is scheduled for April 18th, but likely right around that same time is when we'll be getting those numbers. What we have gone ahead and adjusted, though, we increased local revenue. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're assuming that some of the appeals that are being worked through this year will carry over into next fiscal year, meaning that those will get resolved past July 1st of 2019. So we've updated our local revenue projections from about 3% to about 4.3% increase. That means about $25.6 million more in local revenue for next year. For the state, we are staying conservative there. However, the last proposal that did come through or that was approved included a $3,000 increase for our all teachers, and that would be effective July 1st. We have not received new state allocation numbers with those revised compensation proposals within it. So we think that this state number that you see on this slide will actually tick up a little bit. But again, we'll know that within the next couple of weeks. Other has been adjusted down. We are actually tracking the bus stop arm cameras in special revenue, so that's why you see the adjustment there. And the transfer in represents a change to the Title I transfer into the general fund. This is our best case scenario for a millage calendar, and this is where we're getting that April 18th timeline for the local revenue adjustments. Based on this calendar, we could conceivably adopt the millage rate around the same time that we're adopting the budget. We're always this optimistic this early in the year, and it tends to drag out a little bit later than we would hope. But all signs are pointing to at least having that millage adopted sooner than later, sooner than previous years, which means we could potentially avoid some of the timing issues that we had in the past years. As far as an expenditure update, the biggest cost drivers for this FY 2020 budget is compensation. So last year the big story was TRS, when we saw huge increases in TRS that drove the district's budget to increase by about $16 million. This year the big thing is the compensation, which is not being fully funded from the state. We do appreciate the focus on public education, especially on teacher raises from the state. However, important context that we need to lay out there for our teachers is that we already pay above the teacher salary scale, the state's teacher salary scale, and we also employ more people than we receive funding for from the state. So all of those people and that percentage increase above the state funding formula will be covered by local funds. And also that's only applying to teachers. So we have a lot of other employees in this district that aren't teachers. Sky Duckett, our Chief Human Resource Officer, has worked tirelessly on creating many, many proposals and scenarios for compensation for this upcoming year. You see 3 on this page. What we currently have baked into our budget is about a $12 million earmark for salaries and compensation. Scenario 1, which is the proposal that is most in alignment with the governor's recommendation, would actually grow our budget gap by about $4.5 million. Scenario 2 would grow it by about 1.5, and scenario 3 represents a reduction scenario. So you can see some different compensation scenarios here. We talked about these. Sky went through these at the last Budget Commission meeting, but we are, this is a decision point that we need before we can move forward in the budget process to just see where we're going to land in this compensation scenario. Likewise, we presented on PACT, which is a kind of unfunded component of transformation for this year. We have 3 different scenarios on this slide 12 that we have not currently baked into the FY 2020 budget proposals. The most conservative one is scenario 3, which gives us a planning year. This is the one that we're leaning towards in recommendations. However, we could stand up something faster with additional funding. So this is a second big decision point that we are kind of wrestling with as we continue to move forward to the April 18th Budget Commission meeting. The following 2 slides, I'll just go through this expenditure walkthrough very quickly first. This walks you through how we've changed the budget from the original budget adoption from last year to this year. The biggest changes since the last time we presented this slide is the CLL reductions and found redundancies of $7.6 million. The last time we presented this slide, we had not yet done central office had not yet submitted their budgets. And so you can see there some of the work that's come from that. Preliminary budget by function. The biggest changes here is the continued increases of instruction. The big shift in instruction is as we have additional schools that are moving from traditional schools to our partner schools. It moves to from being spread across all functions to just being calculated in the instruction function. Likewise, $2.5 million increase in textbooks is going to be in this instruction function. And then also the salary increases, which are primarily addressed towards teachers, would be in this function as well. Here you can see the budget by object and the big changes year over year here. Likewise, the other purchase services and professional services, big increases there are represented by our charter and partner school increases. And then salary and benefits continue to be large cost drivers as well. So I'll go through 3 scenarios, gap scenarios quickly. The first one is a more conservative revenue assumption. We're moving away from this one. Scenario 2 captures what I talked about before, where we increase the local percentages. Here we have a $12.2 million budget gap. This is the one that we're currently working with and trying to figure out how to close. As I mentioned before, though, if we did a more generous compensation proposal, this gap could grow by an additional $4.5 million. Scenario 3 we've put up here because it is, again, our focus this year is in trying to grow fund balance, or making a targeted strategy around growing fund balance. In order to grow fund balance, we would need to 10%, which is just a kind of target we threw out there. We would need to add an additional $15.3 million, or $15.6 million, I'm sorry, which would grow that gap by an additional $27.9 million. Fund balance has continued to decline year over year as we've used it to balance our budget, as revenues have been constrained by tax freezes and different things that have challenged our local revenue situations. So we really need to start making a concerted effort to start restoring that. Gap analysis. So this goes back to scenario 2, which is that $12.2 million gap. Some of the strategies we've already used in order to close the initial gap are to do those reductions in central office based on the scaling related to charters and partner schools. We've found some redundancies that were in the school and department budgets, and we've already cut those. We're still looking at different compensation proposals, as I mentioned. We can assume some lapsed salary. The risk in doing that one is it constrains our ability to do things with salary later on in the year. There are some contingency budgets and school reserve line items that we have not yet tapped into, but those are certainly out there if we needed to, if we still had this budget gap going into the next month. Finally, the thing I wanted to highlight on this page and really kind of draw your attention to is the last bullet. I know it's small on the screen, but these budgets do not include a pilot payment that were negotiated through the TAD IGAs. There was a $10 million pilot from the Westside TAD that was supposed to be paid in January of this current fiscal year, and that has not happened yet. Also, next year, beginning in next year, TAD payments from the Eastside TAD were negotiated within the IGA, and this budget does not contemplate those, as we have not received the $10 million for this year. Once we feel like the IGA is moving forward and that $10 million from this year is being paid, then we can feel a little bit more comfortable about assuming that Eastside IGA payment, that Eastside pilot payment. And again, that would be about $12 to $13 million, which could close that gap. If we wanted to do more in compensation, though, we would still have a gap of about $4 to $5 million that we would need to wrestle with closing. So that's a lot in a very short period of time, but I'm available to take any questions that you might have.
Questions? Michelle, Leslie, Cynthia?
I have a quick question, which you may or may not be able to answer. Either last month or the month before last, we did sell a piece of property. Where has that revenue gone?
So anytime that we sell property, that is that would go towards fund balance. It's nothing that you would want to budget a recurring expenditure against. So the sale of property is something that we can use to grow fund balance strategically.
So again, the property that we just sold a month or two ago that we approved, that money has gone into fund balance?
So if we received that and we didn't budget for that, then it's just it's an unbudgeted revenue, which would be towards fund balance, yes.
Okay, I guess I'm not being clear, and I apologize. When we receive that money, it will go into fund balance?
So I need to explain fund balance a little bit more then.
Yeah.
So the way that we calculate fund balance is we have our total assumed revenue for the year against our total expenditures for the year.
Right.
And that difference is fund balance. So
Oh, I
fund
see.
balance accrues year over year, but built based on how much you actually collected against your budget and how much you actually spent against your budget. So since we didn't necessarily budget for that revenue, it doesn't have an earmarked expense to go with it. So it would technically go into fund
Okay,
balance.
I appreciate the detailed explanation. Thank you.
No problem.
Leslie?
It's part of the bucket, okay. So the PACT, slide 12, can you show me on slide 13 where that is?
So actually, it's not in slide 13. So
Okay.
that is something that's currently not in our budget. that is a decision point. So glad you brought that back up. This is something that has been brought to our attention. It was not built into the FY 2020 proposals when departments had their budget templates, because I think there was still some discussions being had about what level of support we could offer in this first year. Scenario 1 is a fully built out program in support of this agreement. The concern with this one is it will take some time to build out some of the stuff that is in this proposal. Scenario 2 is a more, to me, I think, more realistic look at what we could do for this upcoming year, and get off the ground by July 1st of FY 2020 or 2019. And scenario 3 is the most conservative, where we would take time to just do a study year and see where partners are stepping in to contribute additional resources, how other players that are a part of the pact are investing their resources, and have a little bit more time to make sure that those things are integrated in a smooth way.
Okay, but they just coincidentally line up with scenario 1 on 14, 15, and 16. Are they integrated into these gaps?
They are not.
Because
So
we have to land on one of those and then put it here. But
and then every gap
okay.
would grow by whichever
Right.
one we chose. That's correct.
Okay. And I guess when and where and how is that next discussion occurring? Where are these decision points being handled?
So we did discuss it at the last Budget Commission meeting, and I know that the board members that were there did want to bring that back up to the full board. And so we're rebringing that here, and we can have more conversation again at the next Budget Commission meeting as we have better understanding about where the revenue is.
Yeah, so I to that point, Lisa, I encourage all board members to attend the April 18th board budget meeting. We have, in the last couple budget meetings, had low attendance from board meetings, which has not had low attendance from board members to our budget meetings, which historically has not happened. So a lot of these conversations tend to happen in those budget meetings. So a lot of these decision points need to be fleshed out. And by going to the next meeting, it will be helpful to get through the decision points on compensation, which I see Sky shaking her head, and then also PACT as well. So April 18th, it's on your calendar. Please be there.
And can I just throw it out there? I've received a very well thought out email just related to the math and really doing a better or a different take on the math. The governor's thrown out 3,000 teachers. We love you. Here's your money. And we're not saying that. We're not communicating that. I understand why, but just to ensure that that's 20 ways to Sunday that's being shared would be hopeful. Hopeful that happens.
I know that we had worked on a one-pager coming out of the February Budget Commission meeting. I don't know where that actually landed. I think it's been shared with some groups, but we can.
Yeah,
we
I
can,
just know there
I
was
think it needs to be updated.
communication done right before spring break, and then it was like,
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Not telling you to do anything.
Cynthia?
On slide 20,
Ma'am.
where you talked about not including the pilot payments which are due and not asking you to reveal any legal strategy or anything like that. What steps are we currently taking to collect those payments, and why do we not believe that they are going to happen during this fiscal year?
So I think we should
Is that
not have that discussion.
okay? That's fine. And just to summarize, this is you said the east side and the west side?
Right. So there were many different things that were negotiated within that within the IGA agreements. The two biggest, most impactful pilots were the FY 2019 West Side pilot, which would go a really long way in restoring fund balance. Just to remind the board, in scenario 3, where we talk about restoring fund balance, we would need about $15.3 million in order to get to 10%. That $10 million would go a long ways towards doing that. And also the where we currently are with the compensation proposal is this in scenario 1, where we have a budget of about $16.7 million for of the most robust compensation proposal. The IGA would include an annual East Side payment, so that West Side payment is one time. We wouldn't want to, and again, we wouldn't want to book any recurring expenditures against that. The East Side pilot is through the remainder of the East Side TAD, so that is something we could potentially use in order to support the compensation proposals. And so if those funds were available for us to use, it would be something that would go a long way towards making up the difference between what the governor is providing us through the state QBE and what our local revenue would need to pick up.
Okay, thank you.
So, Lisa, just to make sure I understand, looking at slide 11, which one of these scenarios is included in the budget?
So we have $12 million earmarked within the budget, which is a little more than scenario 3, but a little less than scenario 2. The $12 million comes about because if everybody got a step increase, that's kind of what we baked into the budget, is that step increase for everyone, and I think a 1% COLA is how we just tack that onto everyone's salary, so something's baked in. And that's about $12 million. If we did something, Sky and her team do much more in-depth analysis of particular pay scales and different groups, looking at years of teaching experience. So theirs is much more nuanced than what we bake in the initial budget, which is why there's going to be some discrepancy there. But scenario 1 is the one that I think that Sky has proposed as being recommendation as of the last March meeting. But that would create an additional budget gap that we would need to look at filling. One way that we were looking at doing that potentially is that, again, lap salary is something that we could tap into, which is assuming that we don't fill vacancies right away or that vacancies stay open for a certain amount of time. That constrains our principals' flexibility, though. Throughout the year, we know that principals like to tap into those vacancies and do other things with them if they can't fill those positions, and we would not be able to allow that next year if we assumed that salary contingency. The other way that we could close that, we do have contingency budgets in the central office, and the schools have a reserve this year that we set aside funds for, and those are also not earmarked for a particular purpose, and we could potentially touch those if we did want to go more to or do something more in compensation.
Okay, so, all right, so that's slide 11. Slide 12, in answering Leslie's question, you said none of these scenarios are included.
Right.
Right. All right. And then, so with the revenue scenarios, slide 16, 17, 18, do any of those scenarios include the change, the new revenue that you included in slide 8?
They do. Scenario 2 is the most updated revenue assumptions. That includes the local revenue at 4.3% instead of the 3% that we started with.
Right. So scenario 2, with 4.2 of the compensation strategy, and scenario 2, which is, let's say 100, let's call it 5 million. The gap would be like 17.2 million.
Correct.
And that's with no fund balance.
As with no fund balance usage, and that's also not restoring
Not
fund
building
balance.
fund balance. And that's where these strategies come in on slide 20.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
April 18th, 2019 is the next meeting.
And it is our last budget commission before tentative adoption.
So some important decisions need to be made by the board before then.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the administration's reports.
Thank you. Madam General Counsel, is there a reason for the board to retreat into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, there is. We have a student matter to discuss.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to discuss a student matter?
So moved.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Leslie Grant. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now go into executive session. To present us with something and take a picture. So we're going to do that now. And then while this is happening, if you're exiting the auditorium, please do that now, and then we'll continue with the legislative session after this quick picture. Or if you want to. All right. We now call the meeting back to order. Thank you so much, community members, for taking the time to speak with us here this evening. We always appreciate your feedback. We will now move into the legislative portion part of the meeting. I will begin with a few announcements. First, earlier today, we recognized the passing of Dr. Michael Mays. I wanted to mention that during the legislative session. We had a moment of silence earlier, but earlier today he was found deceased at his home. This was a shock to the APS family. He is the director of our CTAE program and has been for the last 8 years, has been influential not only in APS but also in the state, being recognized as the 2017 Georgia Association of Career and Technical Education Administrator of the Year because of his work. And I want to again recognize his legacy and just offer a couple seconds of silence again for this legislative session. Thank you. A couple of announcements before getting into recognitions. For the 34th year, the month of April has been designated as the National School Library Month by the American Association of School Librarians. The month recognizes the contributions of our school-based media centers in providing the materials and resources for teachers and students that encourages growth and knowledge. Our libraries serve as a critical component in not only teaching literacy and research across the district, but they go a long way in encouraging a lifelong learning and free expression in our students. They are an amazing resource available to every student. That ties in well with this year's theme. Everyone belongs at your school, at your library, sorry. For the month, we should pay tribute to the men and women who work in our libraries, our school library media specialists. Their role is to provide the leadership and expertise necessary to ensure that the library program is an integral part of the instructional program of the school. They also teach the skills of locating and using information through traditional resources and new technologies to provide literature appreciation activities and to guide and encourage reading. At this time, I am pleased to congratulate Dr. Zenobia Johnson of Maryland Elementary as our Media Specialist of the Year. Dr. Johnson will represent APS at the regional level competition, which is sponsored by the Georgia Library Media Association and the Georgia Association of Instructional Technology. Dr. Johnson, are you here this evening? Come on up and join us at the dais so that we can recognize him. Come on up. And I also wanted to recognize the other media specialists that were in the house here this evening. You want to stand up? Say hello. Later this meeting, we will be considering a board resolution on National School Library Media Center Month. So thank y'all so much for what y'all do. We appreciate you. Moving on, the district also celebrates Earth Day each year, which is recognized on Monday, April 22nd. On Friday, April 19th, 15 of our schools will be supplied with biodegradable trays for lunch. The district has designated Saturday, April 20th as a district-wide blackout day. So we are asking employees at all APS buildings to shut down their computers and switch off all lights before leaving on Friday, April 19th. The district has also been invited to participate in a Kids Earth Day event at the Center for Hard to Recycle Material from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, April 27th. The center is located at 1110 Hill Street. And finally, Markeisha Paris, our project manager for environmental services and sustainability, will be making presentations at schools across the district about environmental careers, composting, gardening, and recycling. Is Ms. Paris here? All right. We are pleased that we are celebrating Earth Day in a variety of ways and look forward to the events this month. At this time, I want to note that April 2nd, this past Tuesday, was Paraprofessional Appreciation Day. While they may have had that day off for spring break, we are glad to have them back in our schools today. We simply cannot say enough about their vital work in assisting our teachers in the classroom. The benefit of an additional adult in a classroom cannot be overstated, as they enable our teachers to work closer with students one-on-one or in small groups. They assist students with assignments and reading and perform valuable work inside and outside the classroom. Our parapros are wonderful people who are among those in APS living the mission every day to graduate our students ready for college and career. Thank you so much to our paraprofessionals for their service and dedication. So let's give our paraprofessionals a round of applause. And just to be sure, do we have any paraprofessionals in the house? All right. We weren't expecting anyone. Oh, there's one. Hey, thank you. All right. You need to stand up. That was too quick. Stand up. Stand up. Receive the love. All right. Thank you so much for your service. At Atlanta Public Schools, we have made early learning a key priority over the past several years. This week, we joined the National Association for the Education of Young Children in celebration of the Week of the Young Child from April 8th through April 12th. As part of this annual celebration, we encourage our students, our schools, and families to check out the NAEYC's toolkit and celebrate their youngest learners through the daily themes of Music Monday, Tasty Tuesday, Work Together Wednesday, Artsy Thursday, and Family Friday. This year, the NAYC is encouraging us to step it up. In Atlanta, we have the opportunity to do that by committing to the PACT, the promise that all Atlanta's children thrive. The PACT report, which emerged from the Atlanta Early Education Leadership Council and includes a set of targeted recommendations, is the next step in our city's work to build a robust early learning ecosystem that will help us make Atlanta the best place to raise a family. We look forward to working as a school system and with our partners across the city to help bring this promise to life. I'd also like to recognize a special group in the audience today. Later this evening, APS, the board, will be considering final approval of the equity policy, which clearly expresses the board's commitment to pursuing equity in everything this district does. With this policy, the board shows that it believes that achieving equity requires strategic decision-making to remedy opportunity and learning gaps and create a barrier-free environment which enables all students to graduate ready for college and career. We did a lot of work as a board and as a community on this policy. We had a equity task force that was comprised of board members, and it was led by Byron Amos, former board member Byron Amos. If you want to stand up, be recognized. As a board, we participated in 3 equity retreats, and we also appointed 9 community stakeholders, 9 community members to serve on the Equity Task Force Advisory Committee. And those 9 folks were Trinity Lewis. Say hello, get your shine. And she is a high school student at Grady. Samira Ajane. Not yet. Just want them to stand up for now. Lisa Dwyer. Morna Francis. Shamika Yazar. Hello. Jessica Johnson. Greg Clay. Tom Dunn. And Miriam Archibong. We also conducted 62 interviews. We hosted 5 engagement sessions, resulting in feedback from over 120 stakeholders. We reviewed model policies from various school districts, and that task force that I just named did a lot of work to get us to a policy, a draft policy, that was ultimately turned over to the policy committee led by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. I want to thank 2 groups of folks that helped us get it over the finish line. One being Stephen Chang from the National Equity Project. Steve, you want to stand up? There you go. And Ruby Sullivan from the Annie Casey Foundation, and Kwathu Forstall, also from the foundation. Thank you all so much for helping to make this a reality. And what I want to do right now is bring every one of those people up so that we can all take a picture to commemorate this occasion. So come on up. Equity Task Force, the Advisory Committee, the consultant, the funder, everyone, come on up. few things to say. Thank you all for that. I now invite our Deputy Superintendent, David Jernigan, to make his own remarks. David?
Thank you, Mr. Estevez. Good evening, everyone. As was mentioned earlier this evening, Dr. Karsarpin is away from the district today, so I have the privilege of sitting in on her behalf and have a few remarks. I'll start by providing a summary of our work session earlier today. We had 3 presentations. We started with a presentation by Clyde Higgs, the CEO of the Atlanta Beltline, who provided the board with an update on its work to connect parts of the city with multi-use urban trails, affordable housing, green space, and jobs. And we discussed with the board at that time and the citizens of Atlanta that more than $148 million in tax dollars due to Atlanta Public Schools has been directed to the Beltline TAD, which is why it's very relevant for us since its inception. Each year, the district contributes about $22 million to support the Beltline. So we learned a lot today about the progress of the Beltline since its inception. For our second presentation, our Chief Engagement Officer, Angela King-Smith, provided updates about the district's efforts to engage staff and the improvements that we're seeing and have seen over the last 5 years with the engagement of employees. Angela shared some very positive updates regarding our staff engagement as measured by our annual employee survey administered by Gallup. Over the last 5 years, we've made steady progress with employee engagement, and I'm pleased to share that our district is now above the national average for K-12 organizations, which is a significant step forward from where we were 5 years ago when this administration first began focusing on and measuring employee engagement with Gallup. As Ms. King-Smith noted, we are also on track with our work with K-12 Insight to launch the Let's Talk customer service application by day 1 of the 2019-2020 school year. Currently, the district doesn't have a district-wide tool to track and resolve customer service issues or requests, and all matters are handled at the department or school level, so this is going to provide a convenient central spot to handle such affairs, which we're excited about that. But this effort, as Angela described, is more than just a tool. It's about putting a real focus on customer service as a district and further engaging directly with our community. Finally, we ended our work session with a presentation by Chief Financial Officer Lisa Bracken, who provided us with the fiscal year 19 monthly financial update and discussed our planning for the fiscal year 20 budget. I want to thank everyone for their updates and their continued work on our mission to graduate every student for college and career. This time I'll provide a few additional updates, starting with a highlight of the legislative session. The Georgia General Assembly adjourned its 2019 legislative session last Tuesday while we were on spring break. We'll provide a comprehensive update to you at the legislative session at the June board meeting after Governor Tempest had the chance to sign and or veto bills that were passed during this session. I would like to provide a couple of highlights from this session, though, that are relevant of what happened at the Capitol. First of all, the House and Senate passed the Keeping Georgia Schools Safety Act, designed to support school districts as we periodically assess safety threats against schools. As you may have heard, the 2020 state budget also provided for salary increases for teachers, a $3,000 salary increase for educators. Lisa Bracken, our CFO, talked to us today about what the implications are for APS teachers as we go through this budgeting process. And finally, a proposal providing for private school vouchers was defeated in the legislature this session. Again, Erica Long will be providing a more comprehensive update when we come back in June. It is a time to celebrate. Since we were last together, we have a couple of state champs. Really excited to recognize 2 state basketball championship teams who brought home the trophies during the high school basketball championships. Yeah. Those were held on Thursday, March 7th at the Macon Coliseum in Macon, Georgia. So first, you've probably heard by now, the girls team from Douglas High School bested Early County High School to take home the AA girls title. Congratulations to Alana Allen and the Douglas Astros. And we will bring them here for the May student recognition event, and we'll have all of the players here and the coach to recognize them. Also want to give a huge shout out to the boys team from Therrell High School that beat Vidalia High. They also took home the AA boys title, so congratulations to Coach Eddie Johnson and the Therrell Panthers. Are they here? Thero, yeah. Shelley Powell is probably here. We're going to recognize her in a second for something else, but congratulations, Shelley Powell. Also want to recognize Washington High School. You may not have known this. Yeah. We had another team. This is the Booker T. Washington High School team, Bad to the Bone team, the dance team. On February 16th, this team won the Georgia High School Association's first ever state dance invitational. And not only claimed honors as the A to 3A state champions, they also took home the top hip hop award. So we are excited for them. Bad to the Bone competed against a total of 50 dance squads, with teams performing as co-ed or all girls in genres of jazz, high kick, hip hop, and pom in the statewide competition. Congratulations to Sean Freeman and the dance team. The board will officially recognize these teams and hundreds of other students, as I said, at the May 13th special recognition board meeting, and we're excited to see all of them there and hope that you'll mark your calendars for that special event. While we're recognizing athletics in our district, I also want to take a moment to recognize some amazing academic accomplishments. As this board knows, 5 years ago, we made the decision with our charter system implementation to begin investing in signature programs. And we are finally beginning to see the fruit of that investment. These are long-term investments that take many years to get the certifications and the accreditations and the recognition from the various organizations. So we have a few that have arrived and are kind of among the first in our district. So I'm going to recognize a few schools now and ask if members of those schools are here, if your principals and staff are here, to come on forward as I recognize your school. We're going to do one joint picture at the end. First, let's start with Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy. They are the first all-girls school to receive STEM certification in the state of Georgia. As you probably know, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Coretta Scott King earned its certification through the rigorous standards from Advanced Ed. Congratulations, Principal Yolanda Washington and everyone at CSK. Well-deserved honor. Right before spring break, Cleveland Avenue Elementary also received its STEM certification from Advanced Ed. I saw Dr. Clayton. Come on up, Cleveland. Miss Payne. Congratulations, Principal Payne and everyone at Cleveland Avenue Elementary School. Wow, you brought the whole staff, huh? That's how you roll. Okay, the celebration's not over. We have a few more schools to recognize. Next school, none other than M. Agnes Jones Elementary School. As you may know, this was the first, M. Agnes Jones was the first APS school to earn certification in STEM, but it added to its certification in February by adding that A for arts. So it is now STEAM certified by the Georgia Department of Education. Let's give it up for Dr. Wolfhook and her team at M. Agnes Jones Elementary School. It's fine. And if you're keeping score, that means we now have 5 APS schools with STEM or STEAM certification. Recently, both the elementary and junior academies at Charles Drew Charter School earned their STEAM certifications from the state. The junior academy became the first whole school Title I STEAM certified middle school in Georgia. So give it up for head of school Don Duran and principals Moniche O'Neill and Gregory Leapart for the hard work they're going on at Drew Charter School. Congratulations, guys. I also want to thank Brene Bradley, our STEM coordinator for APS, for all of her work in assisting these schools in getting their certifications, and Dr. Mays, in fact, who has really led the way in helping with this. But we're not just celebrating STEM tonight, we're also celebrating IB. We've seen progress with our schools on the challenging International Baccalaureate, or IB, curriculum. Thero High School, Bunch Middle School, and Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School 6-8 campus have all received their authorization as IB or IB World Schools. Let's give it up for Therrell Principal Shelley Powell, Bunch Middle School Principal Octavius Harris, and Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School Middle School Principal Kathy Goodgame and their teams. So we have them all up here. I probably shouldn't have asked you to join before I finished. I can't see anyone, but you're all here, I guess.
Y'all get on a bus or something? Good stuff, y'all. Awesome. Give it up again. Same one. Good stuff. Good stuff. Awesome song.
Congratulations again to all the schools and principals for their hard work. Proud of you guys. And before I conclude my remarks, one final thought tonight. I want to remind everyone about the inaugural APS Rocks and Runs 5K race that's coming up on Saturday, May 4th at Brown Middle School. The event will kick off at Brown at 8 a.m. and will be running or walking, if that's what you prefer, along the historic West Side Beltline Trail. There will also be a fun run for tots that starts at 8:45 that morning at Brown. This 5K will serve as a district fundraising that supports our APS educators, and it's the kickoff of our National Teacher Appreciation Week. We're partnering with the Atlanta Tracks Club, Girls on the Run, and other run groups to increase participation. I want to especially thank Families First Credit Union, Pinnacle Credit Union, Monday Night Garage, and B103 for their support and partnership. There is a registration table out in the lobby tonight where you can sign up, or you can go to Atlanta Public Schools homepage at www.atlantapublicschools.us for more details and to register. We encourage you to join us for this fun-filled event. Mr. Estevez, this concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jernigan. Would you now please present the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and members of the board, I'm pleased to submit consent agenda items 5.01 to 7.13 to the board for approval.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 5.01 through 8.01?
Second.
Been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Is there any discussion? Open the vote. And with that, we have an equity policy. Moving on, and just a quick note, the second was Cynthia Briscoe Brown, right? Okay. Okay. All right. We now have, well, hold on. We did 8.01. Oh, you said some, okay. I guess my notes said it. All right, so 8.01, is there a report out from executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a report out. In discipline, student discipline case number 2019-5, I request a motion to uphold in part and modify in part the decision of the hearing officer as discussed in executive session.
Is there a motion? Or you've heard the motion. Can someone want to make it?
So moved.
Move, yeah. Properly moved by Candace Wood Jackson, seconded by Ishay Collins. Please, any discussion? Please open the vote. Thank you. Next up, we have 9.01, the National School Library Media Center Month Resolution. Can I get a motion? Been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Any discussion? Please open the vote. Thank you so much. We now have a report out from the community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we had 21 speakers for tonight's community meeting. We heard concerns in regards to transparency and community engagement around towns and Fane Elementary and a solid, use of the facilities. We also heard from several community members as well as the Latin Association of Parents for Public Schools Association in regards to moving the Excellent Schools Framework forward and the urgency of holding schools accountable. We also heard about the importance of addressing homelessness and the effect on children in APS schools. We heard from a member who questioned the voting process on last month's vote on the Excellent School Framework. We also heard support for let me make sure I have this right, the Ethiopian Soccer Association of America, and its appreciation to possibly use Lakewood Amphitheater for its 36th annual Ethiopian Culture and Sports Soccer Fest. We heard from the unions AFSCME and FPSE, who selected 5 students for their summer internships, made contributions to Harper Archer for middle school students to attend Washington, D.C., but also expressed our opposition to the recommendation of the food service vendor and support for the Airmark cafeteria workers and the investment made so far. We also heard from members questioning the affordable housing piece and also funding of the Beltline. That was a response to the Beltline presentation at today's work session. And also community members expressed the need to understand what is the timeline and the next steps for the Excellent Framework. A community member closed out by stating that excellence is based on leadership and not by accountability, and that the Beltline tasks also provide opportunities for a learning experience for our students beyond field trips. And that concludes tonight's community meeting, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Collins. We now have report out from board committees. Let's start with audit.
We had a very brief meeting this month to meet with a potential candidate for a position as a community audit advisor, Earl Fagan, who has a very impressive resume and will be filling the seat of Adrian White, who is stepping off. And we submitted an offer to him to fill that seat, and he did accept, so I'm very excited about that. Our next meeting, I think, will be this April 18th, that third Thursday, so thanks.
Policy.
We are so pleased that the board has accepted the equity policy on final approval just a few minutes ago. That's been a lot of work by a lot of people, and I'm also very pleased that so many of them were with us tonight so that we could acknowledge all of their help and support and ideas and encouragement. This is a huge, huge step in the history of APS, and I look forward to seeing us implement it in absolutely everything we do from now on. Our next task is the language policy, and we are consulting with LAPS and with other groups to make sure that we meet the needs of all of our students, families, and stakeholders for whom English is not their first language. And we want to be sure that that policy takes care of everybody, and that we structure it in such a way that it will meet the needs of both our current and future stakeholders. So we look forward to reporting back to the board on that shortly. Our next meeting will be April 18th at 8:30 in the morning.
Thank you so much. There's an important budget meeting coming up on April 18th at 11 o'clock. I encourage all board members to show, as there are key considerations to be made prior to the first vote on the budget coming up in May. On the report out from board conferences, before I throw it out, I want to congratulate our very own Erica Mitchell for being elected to the steering committee for CUBE. Congratulations. That now makes 2 board members elected or selected and elected to 2 of our conferences, one being CUBE and the other being the Council of Great City Schools. Leslie is on the executive committee of the Council of Great City Schools, and Erica is now on the steering committee of CUBE. So congratulations to those board members. Any report out from board conferences?
So I was able to attend March 16th through 19th, the Council of Great City Schools Policy Conference. It's an annual conference in D.C. I was honored to be appointed, officially elected to the executive committee of that organization, which is doing a lot of great work. One of the things that they've been concentrating on for the past 10 years or so is a Males of Color initiative. They have been able to gather a lot of information and are putting that into a Tableau dashboard, and will be able to be a little more helpful with districts that want to know what initiatives actually are working for that subgroup. Along with that, we also decided to put forth an initiative around girls, and instead of boys of color or males of color, we're calling it the Black and Latina Girls and Black and Latino Boys Initiative. So there will be a specific focus on those groups, student groups. Was also pleased to be able to introduce to the council, the full board of the council, the domestic minor sex trafficking policy that was presented and passed by this board by Erica Mitchell's hard work. And there was a lot of interest in that, and we may be using it as a introductory tool for the Black and Latina Girls Initiative. So thank you very much posthumously for that. There was an amicus brief that was filed by the council at the Supreme Court of the United States, ensuring that there was would be a proper count in the upcoming census for all students, making sure that students who aren't citizens are not left out of that. It's very important work that the council's been doing. Also, we approved and were made aware of a letter that was sent to Wells Fargo Bank. That is who the council has been banking with in the past. Wells Fargo has been identified as one of the bank's financial institutions that is supportive of two major corporations that are engaged with the prison industrial complex. So we wanted to send a strongly worded letter to them about their furtherance of participation with that with those organizations. And the council does have a great deal of sway with that with the number. I noticed that we also have an RFP out as a district for those financial services. So I would encourage us to look at that as well and check with the council if we have a letter that we wanted to send. There was a subgroup that visited with Secretary DeVos as well, and I don't have a report out on that. But I look forward to the next meeting will be this summer, and then the larger annual conference will be in October. So.
I was also able to attend the conference with Leslie and Erica Long with the administration. Thank goodness came along with us. And I'm going to speak on Erica's behalf because I was with her in some of her areas that she was able to participate in. There was one session one afternoon where across the nation we came together to talk about national educational policy as well as various bills that were presented in our states. And Erica spoke on our behalf of what was happening in Georgia and really did an outstanding job. On Monday, which was the last day of the conference, we had the opportunity in the afternoon to go visit with our Georgia senators, Perdue and Isaacson, as well as Congressman Lewis's office, Loudermilk's office, and Macbeth's office. And thank goodness Erica was there with us, really presented well what's happening with respect to our position nationally, what's going on in education, helped us understand what were the legislative priorities within these offices, and also gave a strong nod to what was happening in the educational realm here in the state of Georgia. So I really do thank the administration and Erica for coming along with us because it was very, very valuable. And this was my first time attending this conference and was very impressed with all of the information that we received over the weekend. It was a very packed 7 a.m. to like 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever you wanted to make of it. But you try to go to these things to listen and learn. And I was really glad that we had some strong Erica Long back support with us. I mean, because she really knew all the details of everything that was going on and made us look very smart. So thank you, Erica.
This is not technically a conference, but in light of Dr. Mays' death this morning, I want to report out on the trip that I had the opportunity to take with him and Dr. Margaret McKenzie, our coordinator of world languages. That's where I was a month ago tonight. We were in Toulouse and Barcelona. To back up a little bit, in September of 2015, Dr. Mays called me and asked if I'd be willing to help out hosting some French people with schools in Toulouse because he remembered that my daughter had gone on an exchange program through APS many years ago when we were both at North Atlanta. That turned into a 4-day, all-consuming event for me. But it also resulted in the implementation of a program that was near and dear to Michael's heart, and that is our Career Skills Exchange in Toulouse. Last month, we had the opportunity not only to renew and expand that program, but to start a similar one in Barcelona, which we hope will be up and running for the 2019-2020 school year, and also longer-term academic exchange programs for our students who want to concentrate on language and cultural acquisition. In a very few years, these programs have the possibility of impacting over 100 of our students and almost 200 of their students every single year. These programs change lives. And that's what Michael was about. They he wanted our children to know how they could contribute to the world and how they could take their places in the world society. And so it was an honor and a privilege to be able to participate in that with him and with Dr. McKenzie last month. And I look forward to reporting further as we develop these programs in his honor and in his memory to serve more kids every year for many years to come.
Thank you for that, Cynthia. Isha?
What, Eric, about a week ago, we had the opportunity to attend the National School Board Association Conference in Philadelphia, and the focus this year was the work that we were actually doing with equity and also with the emphasis on the arts, and being able to attend several sessions in regards to positive psychology, of course, the equity policy work, how to have a diverse art center, curriculum and school system. APS was spotlighted for Donors Choose was a big sponsor there, but also spotlighted APS and the use of our teachers really taking advantage of that portal to fund projects in their classroom. So that was a great moment. I had the opportunity to visit the HVAC Career Academy that was built in North Philly to help with the workforce development space. And they've also heard of the College and Career Academy that we're launching here. So it was great to see that build out there and the possibility of what that could be as we consider building out the College and Career Academy here in Atlanta. And then, of course, last but not least, just want to again congratulate Erica and supporting her in joining the steering committee for CUBE, which is the Council of Urban Boards of Education, and it is it's a national steering committee for all the urban school districts in the country that are members of CUBE, to actually continue to push some of the urban issues that are happening in our schools. And so it was good to see familiar faces over the years as you attend the conferences. You tend to see a lot of returning board members, and so good to see that and have APS on that. And also with Byron still in there, appreciating him for supporting her nomination for that role as well. So look forward to see some good work from that.
Anyone else?
I'll report out, even though under the circumstances, I made sure that I was able to attend the National School Board Association. I made a commitment to my board colleagues that I would go on these conferences to better myself, to educate myself, and to learn best practices across the nation. So I did go, and I funded my own trip just to make sure I was there. And I was nominated by the CUBE committee to be voted in as a candidate to serve as a member to serve on the steering committee, which I'm very, very appreciative that they thought enough of me to want me to be a part of their on their committee. With that being said, my time in Philadelphia, I had the opportunity to visit the Meyer Middle School. It's an inner city middle school in Philadelphia, where they were below performing for years, and they talked to me about a lot of different things that they did to turn their school around in 3 years, and now is one of the top performing middle schools in Philadelphia. I had an opportunity to do the project, our community service project, with other board members across the nation, which was packing lunches for the after-school food pantry or feeding program that they have in Philadelphia for underserved kids, which I thought was really remarkable. Then also attended the session regarding the 2020 census, which is very important for us to make sure that all our students are counted. It affects our federal funding, Medicaid, Head Start, and a lot of different, Title I, which is one of the things that's really important to our school system. So I will have more information to present on that as well. I was also appointed to Mayor Bottom's Census Committee. Thank you, to make sure that we are able to have a part in it from the educational standpoint as well. So I just wanted to share some feedback on that. Also, I did attend a session with Fulton County. Fulton County School System have a remarkable way that they do their policy, and their session was on how to well, actually was on the best practices on policy, so I was able to sit in to see what our neighbors next door are doing, which was actually very informative. So I just leave it as there because I know we want to get out of here tonight. So.
All right. Anyone else? Candace, I think you're. Come on, give us something. Yeah. All right. With that, motion to adjourn. It's been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.